Welcome back to Through the Veil podcast. This is the podcast where we seek to demystify, develop, and celebrate our spiritual gifts through a faith-based lens. I'm Camille.
I'm Elle.
And this week our guest is Marybeth. Marybeth, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Marybeth Bohn, and my husband and I have been married over 40 years, and we have 2 daughters and 5 grandchildren, a terrific son-in-law, and I like to think that we've always been a close family. We really enjoyed raising our girls, Marissa and Christina, and now Christina is on the other side of the veil.
That's kind of what brings us here today. She's got a very unique story that brings to light a very specific medical condition that is kind of a silent suffering for a lot of people. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And it's so common. And yet women don't realize that what they have going on in their body and in their brain is different than their sisters or their neighbors. And so they function with it and beat themselves up and think that they're failing.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about this medical condition that Christina had?
It's called Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder, PMDD, and it's something much worse than PMS. But those who suffer from it, if they've never heard of it, are just thinking that they drew the short straw, that they got the hard PMS. And it is true that PMS is a spectrum disorder, but so is PMDD. But so if I were to use my hands as a visual, PMS is here and PMDD is up here. Back in the day, back in the 1980s, PMS was introduced to us. It was on the morning talk shows. It was in Family Circle magazine. And Utah was one of the big centers for PMS. It happened that there was a journalist in Salt Lake City, Patty Cannon, whose husband used to use the nursery rhyme, "There once was a girl with a curl in the middle of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. And when she was bad, she was horrid." I used to think of that nursery rhyme also when I was learning about PMDD, because I thought, whoa, here it is. And I'd experienced people that, as I look back in my life, I thought, I bet PMDD played a role in this experience I had in the 1970s with someone, or this experience that I had in the early 2000s with someone, and so forth. And so I was thinking about specific people who would never hear about PMDD because it didn't even get a diagnostic code until 2013. And that's when it went into the Diagnostic Statistical Manual version 5 that psychiatrists use. But the rest of the doctors use an ICD. ICD-11 is now where PMDD is in, the book that it's in. And yet in the US, we're not even using the ICD-11, even though it was published in 2019.
It's still something that's not being recognized.
It's becoming more well known. Since Christina died in the last 4 years, I've seen an explosion on social media about PMDD. And I just learned that now it's on the board exams for family medicine doctors. So this is awesome. I'm so thankful for that. But a lot of nursing schools are just now picking it up. BYU picked it up because Christina was their valedictorian in 2010. And so they've been teaching it since she died. And I invited them to use her name because they need to put a name and a face, make it real, have them understand this is one of their own who died from it. And Christina loved the School of Nursing, obviously, and she got to do research for them when she was an undergrad.
So she attended the School of Nursing, right?
Yeah.
That was her.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then after she died, I asked the alumni office to please contact the School of Nursing. Then they called us and they said, hey, one of her classmates let us know right away after she died, which I'm grateful for. I just didn't have the strength to make all these phone calls right away. And so I think it was around January that I called the alumni to get it in the BYU magazine, the obituaries. And then I said, will you call over to the College of Nursing and just let them know? And then they called us and said, we want to mitigate this as far as the lack of education about PMDD. And we want to start with our alumni and our students. And would you participate in a podcast about it? But yeah, that was fine. Now I look back and I think, oh, please don't listen to that podcast world. Don't go there, because I sound so anxious in my voice. It was so soon after she died. The message came across, but you just think about all the things that you've learned, that I learned about PMDD. And I wanted to just get it all out as fast as I could. And, basically the rest of the world doesn't need to go at that kind of a pace. But at the same time, There are families who are suffering right now. There are estrangements between women and their parents or their other siblings that are happening because of lack of understanding, lack of awareness. And where there is awareness, there can be understanding, there can be support, there can be compassion. But when there isn't awareness, you just think, what's wrong with her? And why is she fine sometimes and rude other times? So it can cause so much confusion in a family. But the person who's suffering is suffering the most, and yet their behavior is off-putting to people at times.
It's like a Jekyll and Hyde syndrome, as far as I understand,
100%.
right? When it's on, it's on, and when it's off, you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
Right.
And then my neighbor was going through her old files. She was a nurse practitioner, and she had files from when she was at the University of Utah, and yet that was back in the 1980s. And she was just chucking all these old files. This was just last year. And then all of a sudden, something in her mind told her, slow down. So she slowed down, and her hand goes to the next file, and it's her PMS file. She pulls it out, and she thought, oh, Marybeth would like this. So she gave it to me. She was handing me a treasure, because that was where I learned about Patty Cannon, who brought PMS to Utah, this journalist in Salt Lake City. So she knew she was having trouble. Her husband knew she was having trouble with her cycle. Something was amiss. Well, then she learned about this doctor in Boston. So she went back to Boston, learned about PMS, brought it back to Utah, started with doctors at University of Utah, the PMS clinic. Then it eventually moved over to LDS Hospital. But then they had a clinical advisor for their PMS chapter of their, I'm going to say the name wrong, but it's basically a national PMS society. So I think Utah was the second state. But she had more responses to her article about PMS than any other article she'd ever written, because women in Utah were desperate for help. And so this is where PMS started getting help. But then they were also talking about premenstrual tension, which had far more serious symptoms, including suicidal ideation and behaviors. And so with that, I thought, well, where did premenstrual tension go? How did that fall off the radar? How come the three of us never heard of it? And so this medical advisor, he said, I think this fell off the radar because women are farming out their symptoms, because the symptoms are all over their bodies. So you're not necessarily thinking that something that's starting 2 weeks out that is causing you physical aches and pains, for instance, all over your body, or migraines, whatever it is, could be related to your menstrual cycle. And so maybe you're seeing a chiropractor and a massage therapist, and then maybe you're seeing a gynecologist, but you're also seeing a psychiatrist, but maybe you're also going to a therapist. So you've got these different people helping you with your different kinds of symptoms.
It's pocketed.
Yes.
And they're not interrelated. They're not talking to each other.
Mm-hmm. And so perhaps that's why it fell off the radar. And then there was the feminist movement, and I'm sure there are lots of good things. I don't want to get into a whole commentary on the feminist movement right now, but there are feminists who were thinking that it was big pharma and male doctors trying to keep women down and trying to elevate PMS to make them feel like they had a medical problem. And that wasn't true. But so that argument got put to bed, but it still bubbles up from time to time. But so finally it lands in the DSM-5 in 2013. But now we're at 2025. For the medical field, that's still pretty recent because of the thousands of codes that they have. And let's say that they have a budget to go to a couple conferences a year.
Start the one.
Is PMDD going to be on the schedule? Is it going to be one of the sessions? Is there going to be a panel that mentions PMDD? Over the last 12 years, not likely.
Right.
I think also we have to take a look at here. Women's health has been largely neglected in the history of medicine for up until like the 1990s.
Well, I mean,
we were just smaller men.
Yeah. I mean, even still, though, my sister talks about this a lot because she's in the medical field, and she's just like, it's still, I mean, even like crash test dummies on cars are men's bodies, men's sizes. Like,
We're decades
still neglected.
behind.
Yeah, we're not catching. We're catching up we're catching up faster than we were in the 80s and 90s, but there's so much of a gap still.
Yeah. And a lot about, I mean, if you talk about the menstrual cycle, female hormone system, menopause, like all of these really integral things about women's bodies and how they function so differently for a very long period of time historically speaking, it was very much like, oh, that's too complicated to study. We're just going to ignore it. Like it's not actually happening. It's going to
Yeah,
take too much resources. We can't narrow it down to sample size. It doesn't respond to normal study practices. So we're just going to ignore it, pretend it's not
right,
there.
right. And then you think about this, when you were in biology classes, you might have learned about the different phases of the menstrual cycle, pardon me. And so we learned about the luteinizing hormone, the follicle stimulating hormone, all this. And you could probably picture in your mind right now a picture of an ovary with an egg that's forming, and then eventually it bursts out and goes down the fallopian tube. But we learned all of that biological part. But did anybody ever teach us that there's a luteal phase and a follicular phase? And in the luteal phase, you're going to, even if you don't have PMS or PMDD, you're going to be a little more tired. And in the follicular phase, that's when you're going, yes, let's plan that water ski trip, or let's go paint the garage. That's when you should be making your major decisions in the follicular phase. Put it off from the luteal phase. You don't want to be doing that luteal phase. When I speak, sometimes I joke about, like, luteal phase is when you get that tattoo you regret. It's just not the best
wild
time. Hair. Yeah, that's not when you pick your plates for your registry in your luteal phase. Don't do that. So you just want to bear in mind that you're going to feel different at different times of the month. They can't study that on a man's body. So they really do need to do more research for women. And it is happening. There is some research going on, and has been, but not enough. And PMDD will be a hard nut to crack, because there are, I don't know the correct medical term for it, but there are just so many subtypes of it. Because there are some women will have variations. There are some who will have more dangerous symptoms around ovulation. Then they'll still have some symptoms, but it kind of settles down, but they'll still have symptoms, but then they rise again before their periods start. Then there are people who their symptoms start, for more people, their symptoms might start 2 weeks out, build up until right before their period. Then for Christina, we saw the scary symptoms happening right before a period. Mm-hmm. Then Christina would go back to normal when she started bleeding. And then for other people, they don't get relief until a few days in, or even until the end of bleeding. Okay. So now they're already going into bleeding is in the follicular phase. That's the first few days in the follicular. And so for some, they might only have one good week.
Like half their cycle.
Yeah.
So I want to take a pause here.
So it just depends.
I want to take a pause here real quick, and let's jump back and kind of define what PMDD looks like, how these manifest. What are these symptoms that show up that are so crazy? And then I would love to talk a little bit about Christina's story and how that affects your life, and kind of how it's become your passion, how Christina has involved herself in your life. I know you have some pretty amazing stories through the veil, and also become a huge part of this education to protect other women going forward in the world who are also struggling with this.
Okay. Yeah, because I can guarantee that there will be somebody listening who's never heard of it, and they'll be saying, this is me. This is me. So I'll take the symptoms from the DSM-5, but I won't read word for word. But you could be having mood swings. You could feel suddenly sad or tearful, and you can cry and cry and cry and not know why you're crying. And it's like you don't know where the shutoff valve is to turn it off. And it can happen to you at the grocery store, at your doctor's office, at church, or at work. Or there are some who keep it in all day, and then they just have to cry in the car or in the bathroom. They could have increased sensitivity to rejection. And what that can simply mean is even something like a loving suggestion, like mom talk, when you're just talking to your mom and your mom said, hey, like when you clean the garbage disposal, they just do this or whatever. All of a sudden they're thinking that mom is saying, I don't think you're capable and competent enough to run your own household. So mom's giving like a hot tip she just saw on the morning talk show, and daughter is now thinking, and you think I'm an idiot. And so why is this conversation going sideways? It doesn't make sense.
Well, does it go deeper than that too? Sometimes, like, you think I'm an idiot, and then you draw on other experiences. Well, she did this that other time, and it's like she doesn't think I'm
it's like psychosis.
Yeah. Oh, psychosis is definitely one of the symptoms. Yeah. And so you can see where family relationships go totally off the rails.
Toxic.
With this. Mm-hmm. And the person who's suffering is thinking that everybody might be against them. And Christina had that belief. And so when she told us this, she goes, Mom and Dad, I want to apologize. I've thought that you were against us for the last 10 years. It was when she came home to us the last year of her life. And she'd been with us about 3 weeks at that point. And she said, you've treated me with nothing but unconditional love this whole time. And I was stunned. Steve was stunned. We were both, at first we didn't know what to say, except for then I said, yeah, I feel a little bit defensive because we're treating you the way we always treat you. But we don't have the distractions of the kids here, and your husband's not here. And I said, but it makes me want to make a list of everything we've done with you and for you for the last 10 years, and not for 1 second have we ever been against you. That never even entered our minds. Yeah. So whatever was going on, whatever
like victimizing delusions in her mind.
Yeah. Irritability, anger, increased interpersonal conflict, depressed mood, feelings of hopelessness, self-depreciating thoughts. She would compare herself to other people all the time. And so I'm not realizing it's luteal phase because I'm not seeing her menstruate at our house. That doesn't come into play for 9 months. And so really quick story. She came home to us to recover from another misdiagnosis that she had. And she woke up in the hospital after having herself admitted for suicidality. And in the morning, she told the nurse practitioner, I feel so much better. I started my period in the night. Can I go home? That should have been a huge light bulb moment, but it wasn't. It was missed because obviously neither of them knew about PMDD. So nurse practitioner said, no, I've seen all your records. You have tried so many things over the last few years. 11 years you've been seeking help. I think you have treatment-resistant depression. You need to have electroconvulsive therapy this month. And you have to have your first session before you leave the hospital. And so Christina was compliant, and I was texting her, begging her not to do it. And she said, no, Mom, I have to be compliant. She was so desperate at this point. And then she would call me all month long saying, it's not working. It's not working. I just feel like my head's scrambled and my memory's being erased. And then at the end of the month, she asked if she could come home and recover for 2.5 weeks. And she never left our house. She was with us for a year and 3 days before she died. And it wouldn't be for 9 months until it finally started clicking. And that was definitely a through the veil thing. And so we finally figured it out after 9 months. She would say, Mom, I should be more like my sisters-in-laws. Oh, why? Well, they read novels. I said, so what? We got to learn how to say so. And I said, they probably look at you and want to be more like you because you're kind and you're so capable. No, I'm not. No, I'm not capable. I can't do anything, Mom. And then I should be more like Marissa, our other daughter. Why? Well, because Marissa knows exactly what she wants and she doesn't care what people think and all this. I said, but Christina, I've always seen you forge ahead. I'm trying to talk her out of her self-depreciating thoughts, not realizing I'm now talking to a PMDD wall that's blocking her own thoughts. It's like we always personify it. We say it's the liar and thief. PMDD is a great liar and thief. And it's also like a foreign hacker that has now come in, taken over her brain, has the controls, and we don't know where this hacker is to stop it. And so every time I'm trying to talk her out of her beliefs, we went nowhere with it. Right. Anxiety, tension, feelings of being keyed up and on edge, and that can lead to panic attacks as well. So she had anxiety for years, but now it turned into panic attacks in the last year. And the last year is like when PMDD hit the fan. So every dramatic, extreme version of the symptoms was happening in the last year. And a lot of that had been not manifested yet. It had been building. And then in that last year, we think COVID kind of nudged a lot of this out because her world stopped. She said that school semesters kept her moving forward, and in high school and in college, she excelled. And then afterward, being a thoracic ICU nurse, that moved her forward, her work schedule. And then after that, after having her kids and not working anymore, she had church callings, church positions, always in leadership. She had been a Relief Society president twice, before she's 27 years old.
Over the entire women's organization of a congregation. Yeah. So, helping and serving and busy.
100%. Yeah. And then that kept her moving forward. And then COVID comes, everything stops. And so now she's just alone in her house. And you know how it was. No distractions. And every day is like yesterday. You don't know what day of the week it is.
And she needs to be a goal-oriented, moving forward person. So with COVID shutting that down, it's like, how do you find your rhythm?
Right. And then something that your audience might relate to is how our society values productivity. And so when you have PMDD and for 2 weeks you are flattened with it could be a week or two, or it could be just a few days out of your luteal phase where you feel so fatigued that you don't want to get off of your bed or off the couch. And now you feel, now add motherhood to that and you feel like a failure. Or you add a career to that and you're just trying to hide under your desk and not have people notice that you don't do squat for a couple days. And so she would feel tremendous guilt and shame over that. And I remember her crying to me on the phone saying, I'm just so tired, I can't do anything. I didn't know what we're talking about. And I'm going, honey, it's okay. Your kids just want you. And it's okay if they eat Cheerios for a few days. Their nutrition can be over the span of the month. It's not just in these few days. And you don't have to make everything from scratch and just Cheerios, Tortino's pizza, you're good, you know, and all this. And but I'm not cleaning the house. I'm not throwing in the laundry. I said, and your kids are little and they're not walking around with a clipboard checking it off to make sure mommy's doing everything. You know, stop it. But I can't tell somebody with PMDD to stop. And I didn't understand what I was talking to. So that lethargy, lack of energy, unable to concentrate, focus, brain fog. Now I'm reading the list. It could change the way you eat. You might be hiding in the pantry. Like she wrote in her journal, I'm standing in the pantry feeling so much shame because I just feel like I've got to eat. And she's so embarrassed. Food cravings, hypersomnia, where she just lie in bed with her eyes wide open with all the racing thoughts, the rumination going on. Or then hypersomnia is where you're too sleepy, and then insomnia is where you can't sleep, or you might have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. So hypersomnia, she then switched over to sleeping too long. So some days she'd sleep till 11, you know, at our house. So feelings overwhelmed or out of control, and then the physical symptoms. And so think of PMS, breast tenderness. You could have the cramps, you could have all that, but you could also have just these muscle aches and pains everywhere. Or migraines could increase, bloating, weight gain, all of that. So it's just everything on hyper mode. It is so much more than PMS.
Well, and it sounds exhausting because you're doing this every month. So it would like wear you down to that. Maybe the next month you have less resources to fight it. And then the next, you know what I mean? It just seems to like whittle you down.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, it's very much like you can very easily see how it can be misdiagnosed, misunderstood, or misinterpreted as something else. I mean, those symptoms are pretty full coverage, entirely reaching. Like, if you were not into your cycle, where I feel like a large percentage of women maybe aren't necessarily tracking their cycle with absolute precision, you may not be able to track. And that may be the only thing that keeps this like would be diagnosable, that would make this something that you would understand. Yeah,
because there is no blood test for it, so you need to track.
Right. And it's a psychosis issue and a hormone issue, because hormones in women particularly influence every aspect of our physiology and our psychology.
Every aspect. And if people would understand that the menstrual cycle is the fifth vital sign, and an ER nurse told me, she said, I've been an ER nurse for 24 years. I've always disregarded the patient intake question about when was your last period. Always thought it just related to might she be pregnant. And she said, now I have my why. And so I said, but you got to understand, it's not just PMDD. It can affect the heart. It can affect other parts of the body as well. Somebody could have severe intestinal distress and be in your ER, and it could be related to their menstrual cycle.
Right.
So you've got to pay attention to that.
Runs your hormones, and our brains, women's brains, literally run off estrogen. So when that flow is disrupted or stops because our cycle changes, our brain flow literally changes, which is a cascading effect because it dictates the rest of our body, right? The entirety of the rest of our body.
And with PMDD, menopause is kind of thought to be your get out of jail card. That's finally the end of it. And some people will have surgical menopause. And some people will, before surgical menopause, they'll trial chemical menopause, where you stop the cycle at the brain level. But for a lot of people, they have to unlearn PMDD because they've had it for so long. It's the neuroplasticity of the brain. They've created those ruts. And so now, thank goodness that we know about neuroplasticity, and there is hope that some of the ways that you've been thinking, these patterns that you've developed over all these years of having PMDD, can be changed. But they need to go through therapy. But now that you mentioned that, maybe all of us benefit from therapy when we hit menopause. Maybe I should have done it.
I think so.
Yeah, I think they benefit from it. Yeah. Starting at age 14.
100%. As our bodies change and realize that it isn't necessarily, these are not character flaws. And that's the thing about PMDD is so many women will be like Christina and think it's a character flaw that they have.
Right.
When it's not, it's their biology kind of betraying them right now. And
exactly. Hijacking their bodies and minds.
yes.
So let's move into some experiences that you guys have had through the veil. Since she passed away, I mean, it not only did it turn your world upside down, but it probably opened your eyes to what was possible with connecting with a close loved one. You probably never lost someone so close to you.
No, I've lost my parents, and I was 29 when my mom was diagnosed with a rare ovarian cancer. So I was 30 when she died. And the day before she died, she came to me, and in those, how they say those hours in the morning around 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember there are sounds that she used to make with her lips, and she was trying to think of what to say, and she'd go like that. And so all of a sudden I heard, "Golly, I just want to tell you I love you with all my heart." And golly would have been one of her words, and that sound with her lips. And I thought, oh, has she died? So then I called, but it was also Marissa's birthday. And Marissa and my mom were very close, but we're in Pennsylvania. She's in California. And I know this doesn't have yet to do with Christina, but I'll tell you why. But so then, no, she had not died, but they, around the hospital bed, wanted to sing happy birthday to Marissa because my mom was in a coma and they were trying to send her a signal. Don't die today. Please wait. And so don't die on Marissa's birthday. Yeah. Yeah. I remember that thinking, okay, this is deliberate, but I'd also learned from someone about transitioning. And so, this would be too many years. Like it wouldn't be till I met you all these years later, because that was 1993. And so, but I thought I didn't learn about transitioning till later, but I sensed from that, like there must be something that's going on here where her spirit's allowed to travel, because then that same morning, my sister-in-law had an experience with her and one of her friends had an experience with her. And they both felt like if I just looked a certain way, I would see her, but we didn't see her.
She's not dead.
But she wasn't dead.
So have you had any experiences with Christina through the veil?
Oh, yeah. The day she died, there were search parties and all that. And I wondered, why wasn't I impressed to go search for her? Like, why wasn't it like when she was 12? I mean, how come I didn't know? Go to her now. Go, and this is where you need to go. That didn't happen. But after she died, I mean, that was, of course, the worst night of our lives when her body was found. But after that, every day, this lamp in our house, this red lamp in our family room. Oh, okay. So that one that has a light on in my background, that little red lamp there in the corner, it is controlled, and I'm going to spell it because there's a device in here. It's controlled by Alexa.
By the Amazon one.
Yeah.
Oh, that one.
I don't want to say it because, but so anyway, it would turn on and off by itself though for a month. And so I'd just be sitting on the couch and it would turn on, or it would turn off. And so we knew it had to be her. And then like sometimes Steve would be going downstairs to the basement to work out and he would say out loud, "Christina, if you're here, will you turn on that light? And when I come back upstairs, will it be on?" And it would be. It would turn back on.
So cool.
Yeah. So she could control the lamp. Then we got a little dog, so that because her kids were coming after 1 month after she died. And the kids always came every month. We made sure she spoke with her kids every day. Her doctor ensured that happened in the hospital. It was his idea. He said, we don't want her to lose her maternal instinct. So he made sure she FaceTimed with the kids every day on a therapist's phone or iPad. And then at home, she did that. And then once a month, the kids, we'd meet her husband at the halfway point because they were 5 hours away. And we'd have the kids for a weekend. And we'd all sleep in our bedroom. And we'd say, we're cocooning. It's a family slumber party and all this. So it was sweet. But anyway, after we got the little dog, that was to be a distraction. So that when the first time the kids entered our home and their mom is not there, that they were distracted. And that little dog did his job, this sweet little Toby. And but then through this time, I've gotten nudges. So we asked an organization that focuses on PMDD if they could make cards for us. So they sent us a PDF and we printed off cards for the funeral. And then we've since printed 54,000 cards. And now we have our own foundation. But so now we've done our own cards now. But I used to be just anywhere. And I thought maybe this is how people who serve missions feel, because I've never served a mission, so all of a sudden I would get these goosebumps all over and like this buzzing feeling in my head, like my head is now full of stuffing or something. It's just the weirdest feeling. And I'd be looking at a total stranger knowing I'm supposed to go over and give this
Give them a
person a
card.
card.
Can we
And
see
it
the
was,
card? Can you show the camera
oh,
so we can see what
yeah,
it looks like?
so they're postcard size.
Oh,
And, I would send them. Can you see that?
There you go.
yes, now we can see it. Yep.
Okay. And then there's one side about PMDD, one side about PME. But it was a bullseye every single time.
Wow.
And
That takes a lot of guts.
I know. And
Go
the first
you.
time I did it, I thought, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to go over there and give this to somebody. And yes, I was. And then I will not exaggerate. I wish I'd been keeping a list, because my mother would tell you, Marybeth Bohn does not exaggerate, because I don't have to, because life's weird enough. People are weird enough. There's no need to exaggerate. But that happened over and over again with the cards. And there are stories about that. And now to this day, it doesn't happen as often, but I still carry the cards in my purse. And like I went somewhere recently, and all of a sudden I stopped and I looked at a lady. I said, I don't know if this is for you or for somebody you know, but here's a card I'm supposed to give to you. And sometimes it'll come full circle, sometimes it doesn't. But
well, maybe it doesn't come full
know.
circle for you, but it does.
Right, not that you
don't know the rest of the story.
Right.
Where the card goes.
Yeah,
exactly.
Traveling card. Do you have any doubt that that's Christina behind that?
It's her, 100%. And now I'm getting goosebumps because I feel like she's saying, yeah, it's me.
Yeah, well, what's interesting? I was listening to a man talk about his near-death experience. He's actually going to be on the podcast at a later date. And he was sharing that when he was watching his body being rolled into a hospital to get operated on after a horrific car accident, he saw his spirit was watching the scene. He could look at nurses, and he knew their whole story. He's like, I knew about her history of being abused. I knew about her insecurities. I had unconditional love for this woman. So imagine Christina following you around and being like, this woman, mom, this one. And you're like, okay, I'm just going to trust. Yeah. Here I go again.
Yeah. Okay. So there is a story kind of like that. And because I believe it, and I'm just covered in goosebumps right now, because, we've all, three of us have talked about, this is Christina's mission. I mean, I'm right. Convinced of that. It's been 4 years. Too many things have happened for me not to think that. That this is her mission, and that mom and dad are the only people she's got that she can kind of tell us what to do and give us those nudges, So, and we would do that. We're willing to do that for her. One day, Christina and I were sitting in church, because during COVID we could go sometimes, but not other times, and all this stuff. And so we're sitting there, and we'd already had this conversation with our psychiatrist, because we do weekly Zoom calls, and the productivity conversation came up because she's so hard on herself that she wasn't always productive, because we value that in our society. So if anybody's listening, you are valued whether or not you can be productive. You are loved, you matter, regardless of how productive you are. That's not where your worth is. But it's hard to tell somebody with PMDD that. But so now all of a sudden we're sitting in church, and the song is Put Your Shoulder to the Wheel, Push Along. And I thought, oh no, not this song. Please, not this song. Because it's all about being productive.
Right, it's the weak point.
It gets to a part where it says, the church has need of willing hands and hearts that know and feel. And I said, Christina, that's for you. That's you. Because there are a lot of people here who don't have that heart that knows and feels, but you do. You get it. And I didn't know that would make such an impression on her until I was walking upstairs after church, and she's just sitting in the hallway talking on the phone to her cousin. And I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. It's just the sound in the air. I can't help but hear it. And she's telling her cousin, hearts that know and feel. My mom just pointed this out. And I thought, that meant a lot, that it sunk in.
It's amazing, or maybe not so amazing. Maybe it's obvious, or it should be. How many times it comes up in sessions and stuff with people on the other side, how their own particular life incidences become their life work, their afterlife life work on the other side as well. And why would it not be? Right. If you have so much passion about that, you have had the experience, you can deeply understand where someone is who shares that same experience as you. Why would that not be a place that 100%. You step in?
100%.
So
absolutely.
it's beautiful and cyclical that even in the midst of pain, right, God can take something and turn it for the benefit of other people.
Right.
And that we can all be instruments in that task as well.
Yeah, because really, there's nothing that I hate more than the fact that this happened in Christina's life and that she's gone. I don't like that. And it's hard to live with that every day. But at the same time, we do see the beauty from ashes, and we see her ministering to other women. And if we can be somehow an instrument for her to get that help to them, we're happy to.
It also really helps to have very adamant people on the other side who are constantly working with us hand in hand, right? Mm-hmm. And Christina is an intentionally strong presence. Camille and I have both connected with Christina, and she is clear. She is completely clear, powerful, and capable, which I can only imagine was much the way she was here before PMDD stole, that clarity from her. So it's been quite restored, and she's doing so much good on the other side where she's at and working with what she has.
Absolutely.
Camille particularly felt very, very strong a sense of urgency of bringing you here today and having Christina's story be shared. So if anybody out there is struggling with these symptoms or recognizing these signs in their lives, go seek help, educate yourself, and so that you can find a provider that will help you be able to confront these things and treat these symptoms, so that Christina's story can have impact, can have meaning in the lives of everyone. Thank you so much, Marybeth, for sharing her story today and for being so vocal about something that is not on people's radar. It really, really should be.
There is help for it. And there are a lot of people who respond well to treatment and they go on living and they live their life. If anybody would like to visit our foundation page, it's the Christina Bohn Foundation.org. And you can reach out to us. Our email address is on there. I'll mail cards to people, or I'll mail them the PDF. If they want to print a whole bunch for where they live, they can go for it. And we just invite them to do that so that awareness can save
Spread
somebody else.
Spread the education.
Save a marriage, save a family. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Marybeth. Thank you for sharing Christina's story and being with us today. If you have a story you'd like to share, something meaningful that you think could impact others' lives, raise awareness, or have connections with the other side or spiritual gifts, drop us a line. Our email can be found at our website, which is throughtheveiledpodcast.com. You can find information from Camille and I both on there and links to our individual websites. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and it helps us be noticed more and get the word out there for the work that we are doing as well. And I guess we will see all of you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.